So here's a question for you. What would you do if a radio station suddenly started speaking your name? And it wasn't just your name, though. It also told you how you would die. Yeah, that's pretty messed up. Let's imagine this scenario, the setup of it, before things get bad. You find an old radio. Maybe you found it in a thrift shop or an abandoned house. Maybe you were fixing it up to restore it, or you just liked the way it looked. Regardless, after some fiddling around, you got it to power on. You tuned into an old classic rock station, but there was nothing but static until one night when you heard some strange noises coming from the speakers. Fiddling with the dials didn't help. Whatever these strange signals were, they seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere all at once. They lasted only a few seconds, and then just as suddenly as they started, they stopped. The next night, though, the same thing happened. And then, as you reached out to turn the radio down, two clear voices cut through the static. They were talking about something horrible, something involving a boy, a van, and a cliff. You tried to listen more closely, but whatever it was that they said, you couldn't quite make out. It sounded like they were discussing the boy's name and his upcoming demise. Could it be possible that this antique radio was somehow picking up some sort of broadcast from beyond the grave? Or maybe you were going crazy. Either way, you weren't sure you wanted to listen again. And so you left the radio alone for another week. But then, one night, you heard it again. Those same strange signals. And then, finally, the voices began to speak again. This time they were discussing a girl, her car, and a tree. They described her name, how she was driving home late from her date, and then they told exactly how she would die. She would swerve off the road to avoid hitting an animal and slam into a large tree head-on. Just as the voice finished their grim prediction, a loud crash echoed through your neighborhood, causing you to jump in your seat. As you stood there dumbfounded, trying to figure out what was going on, the radio suddenly clicked off. Then back on, the voices were gone, replaced by nothing but static. You didn't want to think about what had happened. You told yourself it was just a coincidence, but something deep down inside you knew it wasn't. The next night, you woke up to those same strange signals. When they faded away, the voices were back, and this time they were discussing a young man. They talked about how he would be working late in his office building and how he would forget his keys. The voices explained that this would cause him to climb in through his window, except the window would be open and he wouldn't notice. He would fall and plummet 3 stories to his death. As they finished their grim prediction, you heard a loud crash from downstairs. Something heavy had fallen. You ran down the stairs, your heart pounding in your chest, and you found a chair laying on its side where it had been knocked over in the middle of the night. The next night, it happened again. The same signal, the same voices, this time talking about a woman who would be jogging through the park late at night and would be attacked by a stranger with a meat cleaver. They went into great detail, describing exactly how she would die, gushing blood all over the pavement, her limbs severed and tossed into nearby bushes. The next morning, you read about a savage meat cleaver murder in the local paper. You tried to convince yourself that it was just a coincidence, but deep down you knew it wasn't. You needed to turn off the radio, destroy it even, but every time you thought you had, it came back on. Static, and then voices. The voices spoke of your cousin Mike and how he would be killed in a freak lawnmower accident. The next day, you saw the hearse carrying his body to the funeral home. Then the radio told you your neighbor, Mrs. Gable, would have a heart attack while watering her prize-winning roses. Next day, ambulance, then the radio. Told you about your friend Mark and how he would die choking on a piece of steak. You couldn't take it anymore. You unplugged it and smashed the radio with a hammer, cursing and screaming at it the whole time. But still, when you turned on the radio, the voices continued. They were coming from inside your head now. You ripped out the speakers and smashed them against the wall, but the voices kept talking. They were getting louder. You threw the radio out in the rain, certain that the downpour would stop it. But it didn't. You watched in horror as the radio continued to speak about how you would die. The voice told you how you would sit there watching, listening to the radio, and that was true. But that was all they told you. You sat there for hours, waiting for them to finish their grim prediction, but they never did. They just kept repeating how you would die sitting there watching. Days turned into weeks, and still the radio continued to whisper in your ear. You tried to ignore it, to pretend that it wasn't there, but it was driving you insane. One night, the voices changed. They were no longer outside your head, but inside, whispering directly to you. They told you to look behind you. Slowly, you turned your head, your eyes scanning the darkness. There was nothing there, or so you thought, because when you turned back around, you saw something that made your blood run cold. In the darkness, the radio was getting up. It waddled towards you on little legs, its dial like a grotesque face staring directly at you. The voices whispered in your ear, telling you that everything was going to be okay. And as you screamed and tried to run, the radio moved faster, keeping pace with you, its antenna twitching like grasping fingers. When the radio finally caught up to you, it opened its mouth, revealing rows and rows of razor-sharp teeth. And as it lunged forward, you could hear the voices one last time. They sang in unison, "We are the voices. We are the voices. We are the voices. We are the voices. You are not listening to us. We are listening to you." Now, don't go anywhere. You need to see these other videos. They're just as scary as this one.